evidently the Carrington family were cousins of Alan Perkins Johnson. And
who's that?
the Carrington sisters that had Sunnyside.
I didn't know. I didn't know
Sunnyside was named by the Carrington sisters when they opened up the school. So that was
the school came first.
The school came first. Sunnyside was named because of the school. So that's when the first time that Sunnyside was actually used out there. So that was in
from 1833. Where you picking up with the school?
Yeah. So that was the first time that it was actually used as Sunnyside.
Okay.
Prior to that, it was it was named other things along those lines. Alan Perkins Johnson purchased it in 1926 from the Carrington girls. He actually paid it off. At that point, it was a tobacco farm. It was like 450 acres. He farmed it with tobacco, also the fruits and vegetables and things like that for the family. And then he got interested in dairy farming. So sometime between 1926 and his death, but obviously probably a lot earlier, he built a dairy farm where he got the milk and everything and sold it and did all those types of things. Based on my grandmother's journal that Patrick actually had her do, he didn't want to put up with my grandfather's shenanigans, bullshit, whatever. Yeah. But when my grandfather married my grandmother, the schoolhouse was still there, and so they made it into a home for my grandfather and my grandmother. And my mother was born about a month early, and they hadn't quite fixed up the schoolhouse. But my mother ended up staying in a dresser drawer, so they didn't have a crib or anything like that. Along those lines. So, yeah.
That's Margaret.
Yeah, Mom was born about a month early than expected.
And Margaret's crib was a dresser drawer.
Yeah, so it was a dresser drawer. But he had a big thing. His passion was the dairy. And he had talked about giving my grandfather the tobacco side of it. Of course, my grandfather didn't quite live up to his expectations. Or anybody else's. So, that didn't quite take foot. But that's what I know from a factual perspective along those lines. But he sounded like he was a pretty good guy, decent.
But did he marry Gammy? Young? Because she had her children later, but did they marry later?
They married later.
Okay.
And Gammy's, the Dutro side, was actually from St. Louis, Missouri.
Right.
And her father died. He was in the railroad.
Right.
And mines.
Yeah. And evidently, I've got...
he owned mines and he died in mining.
Exactly.
He fell down a mine shaft.
And I've got the article, actually his obituary is coming to me. Yeah, his obituary is coming to me from the St. Louis newspaper there. And I should get it within the next week or two, so I'll send that out. But the guy I talked to in St. Louis has it.
Oh, wow.
And is sending it to me, so I'll have his obituary shortly. I've also got in my book from the Dutro side, when Gami, when he died, I've got the list of assets that he had. It went into probate.
About Alan Johnson Sr.?
No, I'm talking about Thomas
Corwin Dutro.
Dutro.
We're talking Dutro.
So Gami's father.
And he was pretty wealthy, wasn't he?
Not really.
No.
Oh, really?
He was actually, when he died, he had a whole lot of debt.
Debts.
Yeah, I knew that.
And so by the time that I've got the documents and I've got the book in the hotel, so you guys can take a look at it.
Super.
It's got like 4 or 5 pages of assets, and it ends up telling what Gami's mother ended up with.
Nothing.
Almost nothing. And she actually let her son, one of her sons, do the probate. He did all the paperwork and
Then
stuff.
he disappeared.
And then
No, I think it was the other one.
The other one
was a doctor.
Yeah,
the other was a doctor.
But Uncle Tom was too young, I think, at that time to do it.
I've got to look and see who it is, but I've got the paperwork.
Because I think what happened was the older one that did it.
And he
That was
disappeared.
the one that
Well, he was
Laura,
only a
grandmother, said his name will not be spoken.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was only a couple of years older than Uncle
Yeah, he
Tom.
wasn't that much. He wasn't that old.
I mean, so if Uncle Tom wasn't, you know.
Yeah.
He was Edgar, he was a philanderer.
Right. No.
So Debbie, in terms of the murders, with your research, what have you discovered?
Well, in terms of the murders, what's been shown is that AB had one of the things from the fireplace, and he waited. And when Alan Perkins Johnson came in the house, he beat him, and then he raped and murdered Laura Dutro, and shot her, and then put them in the closet. So, and there's no, in anything that I've found so far, there's nothing that says why. But I've talked to the clerk of the court, and they're supposed to be sending me all of the documents from the trial. So hopefully we'll get those shortly.
Well, your mom just said that AB left a note on the tape. Is that right?
Yeah, he had left a note and it said that he would kill the rest of the damn Johnsons before
Yeah.
he was through.
And Mom's told me that, but I haven't seen it, you know.
How old was Laura? So much for getting him educated. So
She must have been
she was in her 60s.
Yeah, she was older. She never married, and Thomas Dutro never married. Those were the sisters of Edith Dutro, and sister and brother of Edith Dutro.
So I've always heard that AB.
Okay, but you're getting into speculation. What Debbie is telling you is what is factually certifiable.
Right.
We've all heard different stories.
Right.
My story, of course, is different from Margaret's story a little bit, but probably not in terms of factual happenings. I mean, I remember that, I do remember that when my father, Alan Jr., learned of the death of his father, he said, I know who did it, and I'm going to go kill that son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And he loaded up a 1939 Chevrolet with his shotgun, and he headed out. And my mother had to call the state police of Virginia and say, please stop him, because if he finds him before the police do, he will kill him. My father and AB grew up at Sunnyside together. AB and my father worked the fields together, they milked the cows together. They were and it was close as a black man and a white man could be in those days. My father knew AB. And he said he killed him because he wouldn't let him have the car. He got drunk or something. And I know where to go get him, and it's in North Carolina. He knew to go to where his sister was. And he was headed that way, and he was intercepted by the state police of Virginia and put in jail.
Your dad was.
My father.
Yeah, thank God.
And they held him there
Until
until they got AB.
I believe it or not.
For a little They arrested AB in North Carolina
And had he killed his sister in North Carolina?
and brought him,
Had he killed his sister in North Carolina?
No.
There's nothing that says
I've never heard that.
Okay, I heard that, okay.
But anyway,
there's nothing that says that.
I can't find any historical fact of that. And what I'm even telling you is mythological from stories I heard when I was a child. And so when AB was brought back to Mecklenburg to stand trial, to Mecklenburg County, then they finally let my father out, but they told him he would go back to Newport News. He would not go to Mecklenburg. He wanted to go to Mecklenburg some kind of bad. They took his weapons, they took everything he had, and they sent him home. But that shotgun is still part of our history, not because it killed AB, but because it wanted to. So that's the story I know
And
about.
so did everyone who was connected with him.
That's right.
And Mother said the thing of that story that Spark said apparently Debbie probably couldn't uncover, or maybe she can't, but that when they caught AB, they brought him back. There was a county prosecutor here who was going out of office, and the family wanted him prosecuted for both counts, for killing grandfather and for raping and murdering Aunt Laura, which would have, you know, I mean, that meant execution. And for whatever reason, the county prosecutor who was going out of office decided to prosecute only on the one count of killing the prominent member, who was Mr. Johnson. And I never got, there was a lot of bitterness in my mother's heart with regards to this prosecutor.
George, what Debbie has given us in our packet, there's a little whatever excerpt from a newspaper that says he was sent to a hospital for evaluation.
Oh, yeah, he would be.
Committed.
Yeah.
Committed. So there was question about his mental status.
Well, that was sure. I mean, that's what.
For age.
Well, you know what?
But you're still talking about raping and
I
murdering
remember
white
one
women.
time Mother said that
And back in those
one of the
days?
reasons that didn't bring up the other count is that he thought if he came up for parole for the murder of Alan, that then they could bring up the rape and murder and maybe prosecute him again. Whereas if they brought the whole thing up and they bundled it all together, that there was a question of whether. To me, it was sort of almost a strategic sort of thing, and I don't remember. It wouldn't have been grandmother, but it would have been mother who was.
Mother never described it to me that way. She said that if he prosecuted the way she wanted it prosecuted, he would have been executed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think in some
Well,
Virginia,
I've got the clerk of the court is now in a jury trial,
Right.
but he's told me that, you know, in a couple of weeks he's going to give me the entire trial documentation.
Regular.
I'm very surprised.
She would go every 2 years
Yeah.
for a while. I mean, I think he was up for parole after getting life in prison. He was up for parole in 7 or 8 years. And she would go almost every 2 years.
Let me tell you one thing. Let me tell you one thing that's probably mythological, but I think has a lot of truth to it. As all of you know, my father was a hopeless alcoholic, and he spent most of his time drinking and boozing, but he spent a lot of his time in his drunken stupor talking about getting AB. He wanted AB. He was saying, "God damn it, if Ray will just let him out, I'll take care of that son of a bitch." And that's what he would say in his drunken
Probably
stupor.
why Ray was keeping him locked up.
Ray worked her butt off all the time that he was in jail to keep him from getting parole.
We got a letter from Governor Stanley.
We don't. I contacted the.
Since the Civil War that gave her the right to appear anytime he came up parole, and she did that.
He would be a
until
very old man.
they were up in But Bobby, there's one thing.
You're just gonna have to let us see what you got.
Hold on, let this guy.
Hold on,
We got some priorities here, folks.